Hello, esports fans, and welcome here to this game of StarCraft that was found on reddit.com/r/castit. I will be your host, Thaco, and we will see spawning here on the lower left-hand position of Newkirk Precinct. It is going to be DroneOfArc. And let's see if he has any divine intervention here to help him defeat his opponent, the Terran Talrane, in the red on the bottom right position here of Newkirk Precinct. This will be a ZVT, and I believe that DroneOfArc is a lower league than Talrane, and that is the message of this conversation that has been going on below us here, saying that he was winning too much early on, and then I was doing the intros and stopped reading. But we will see that Talrane has finished working on his wall off, going for the barracks, not going for the command center first. And then back on the left-hand side of the map, we will see that DroneOfArc is actually going to scout pretty aggressively this game, sending that drone scout out across the map, and is saving towards a hatchery, it looks like, not going for that spawning pool first. He will be taking that hatchery first, which is the most common opening against a Terran player, because there's just not a whole lot the Terran player can do to you early on in the game. If you decide to go for that hatchery and that more greedy economic opening, going back up to 16 drones before even starting the spawning pool here, DroneOfArc is playing very greedily, while on his part, Talrane is playing pretty conservatively, getting that geyser down nice and early, going to go up towards that factory as quickly as he can, getting that orbital command in, and sending out that Reaper, actually. That's what he will use the first 50 gas on. Does not want to get caught off guard with what DroneOfArc has in his base, wants to get that full scouting information. Has he actually scouted anything? No, he has not scouted anything. So it will be important for him to get that Reaper out across the map so he knows what is going on. The spawning pool is about halfway done here for DroneOfArc, as he continues to just get overlords positioned around the map, wants to know what's going on, wants to protect himself from those drops. Actually, it looks like Talrane is going to go for multiple Reapers here, getting a second one even. Wants to harass those workers of DroneOfArc as much as he can. DroneOfArc has those two queens on the way, and once those queens are done, actually, this pressure with the Reapers from Talrane will be done, and it will also shut down their scouting potential. But before they are out, these have every potential to harass these workers, and the Zerglings that are in production will not be able to chase these Reapers once they're off creep. A lot of drones pulled here to try to force these Reapers back. He needs these queens to finish up as soon as possible. The second Reaper is now moving out across the map. Talrane stops his Reaper production there and starts to go for the factory. In that pregame banter, he was discussing Widow Mines with DroneOfArc, so it is very likely we will see him going for Widow Mines. And to count, okay, DroneOfArc doing the very smart move there, getting his injured drone turning into a spore crawler so it does not die, canceling that once the pressure has been lifted a little bit. These two Zerglings are going for that SCV that is constructing this command center, and it will not die. It will make, oh, it doesn't get it back to safety. It is leaving. It did not want DroneOfArc to get the scout, but DroneOfArc will not get the scout. He does see the factory as well as the reactor, and there is actually nothing hidden behind it, but he did not want DroneOfArc to know that. Going to try to focus down that reactor. He shouldn't get it. The Reaper should kill everything off first, but there's a tech lab going down onto the factory, which means that he is not going to go straight up into Widowmine production, but will instead be getting siege tanks, or will he switch the two once it is done so he can research stim? He does have a siege tank on the way. Siege tank will work wonders against Roach Hydra play if that's what we see him transition to. Works well against Ling play as well, but Widow Mines just work a little better if you can get them well positioned. But we will have to wait and see what becomes of that. In the meantime, there is an armory on the way. An engineering bay. Has that... How long have we had the engineering bay? We don't have an engineering bay down. So it looks like he might actually go up to a more of a mech style from here, if his armory is his first choice of upgrade building as it is, or he might be going for Hellbats and try to fly Hellbat drops out across the map. Not as effective as they once were, but to say they are ineffective is a gross under-exaggeration. But there we go. Now he switches the two. He was just being conservative with his time. And Stimpack is started, and we do see double Hellbat production begins off of the factory. He will be going for those drops as the starport finishes. There is not a lot of drop defense back home for DroneOfArc. The Hellbats do not do as much damage as they once did to workers, but they still will do substantial amounts of damage. And a very nifty little wall off here at the ramp for DroneOfArc. He does have his third base finished and is beginning his saturation on that. He's working on getting that creep spread pushed out there. Does have a nice little wall of overlords here. Getting a full scout on his opponent. Wants to watch for any drop timings that do occur. But this one is the one he wants to keep alive. That will be what allows him to see that Hellbat drop move out across the map, and that Marine does start focusing it down. This could be a huge loss for DroneOfArc if this Overlord dies and he does not know about those Hellbat drops. Will his Overlord get vision on the starport? Even vision on the starport won't tell him anything. Medevacs are a huge part of Terran play. He won't know that it's Hellbat drops. He will not know he needs to defend against those quite yet. If his opponent even decides to go for him, he just might be mixing Hellbats into his composition because they're good against light units, and his opponent is still on Widow Mines. Or, not Widow Mines, on Zerglings. Working on those +1 melee attack upgrades as well as the +1 carapace upgrades. Saturation is doing well here on the third base, and there is this army moving out around for Talrane. He does get that spotted with that Overlord. That Overlord should be picked off by these Marines, but this force now has to push out across the map and actually do something. It has been spotted. The novelty of the Hellbat will not last forever. It will need infernal pre-igniters if it wishes to be effective with that blue flame against the Zerglings. If not, it can easily get surrounded. That Siege Tank will do good work, but there are roaches mixed in. The roaches will clean up those Hellbats. The Siege Tank does good work against the roaches, though, and that we see now that Talrane does clean up a lot of that outside creep spread and several fresh creep tumors. The Queen gets picked off and he does start pulling back. The creep spread is been negated along this right edge, and he will move in to try to kill off the third base. And the excellent surround by those Zerglings, but they do get cleaned up almost instantly by the Siege Tank and the Hellbats. The Hellbats now, Siege Tank has been cleaned up. The Hellbats are getting kited back by the roaches. The roaches doing really good damage against those Hellbats. Two of them are in very low health. There's only one left. A huge wave of Lings comes out across the map, and they do push down. The Hellbat being microed around in the medevac, trying to clean up as much as it can. All of the Zerglings have once they've been getting cleaned up. These three roaches are still alive and trying to hold this back as best they can, but there are a lot of workers dying here, and that is a full health Hellbat just still raining down destruction wherever it can. And this third base has just been utterly decimated by Talrane. DroneOfArc is desperately trying to get out the roaches necessary to fight this. Streaming in Zerglings, trying to kill everything, and that Hellbat does finally fall, and this push should no longer be effective. There is one last Hellbat that does fall. No more Hellbats on the map, and is forced to pull back, but he got the snipe off on that hatchery. That cost a lot of workers died there too, I believe. 13 workers died. The hatchery fell. That is a huge amount of expense for DroneOfArc to have to make up, but he does have a very large upgrade advantage at this point. He does have his +1/+1 finished and has begun the +2 melee attack and the +2 carapace to his opponent's only +1. The Zerglings are swelling out across the map, trying to pressure his opponent for that very aggressive play. They do push up, and the wall is raised almost instantly. They will not get up there, and these two Zerglings will die. Does check both of the third locations to make sure there is no third base here for Talrane, and there is not a third base on the map yet. There is no third command center on the map yet. He has no intention of taking that base at this point in time. Wants to stick on this two-base pressure. And behind this aggression that we now see DroneOfArc bringing out, he does bait out one of the Widow Mine shots. The second Widow Mine has not fired yet, and it does not get the most efficient connection, only killing off 3. The bunker does fall, and the SCVs are pulled. But behind that, DroneOfArc also pulls back. It does not have the splash damage to deal with all of those SCVs yet. SCVs still have not gone back to mining. They are still sitting there. 13 Banelings being morphed in, 13 more Zerglings. Zerglings being morphed in to reinforce this, and Centrifugal Hooks is seconds away from completing, giving those Banelings the speed they need to effectively get this done. They do detonate a lot of them against the building, and they now try to roll in, and they kill off excellent connections there, and those were all excellent connections. There's not a lot of army left here for Talrane. DroneOfArc's roaches have come in and are doing the best damage they can. The SCVs are once again pulled, and the Zergling reinforcements do finally make it to the fight. Huge amounts of SCVs are dying off here, but he is not connecting with the army of Talrane. Talrane's army is cleaning up DroneOfArc's forces as best it can, but now the SCVs are dead, and he is once again working on the army. There are still SCVs mining at that natural expansion. Widowmine's getting good connections there. There's army on the high ground. There's very low army on the low ground. And it looks like Talrane will hold this and clean up the army from DroneOfArc. There's only one roach left on the offensive, but there are still more Zerglings streaming out across the map. There are still several now engaging in a slow stream, and okay. DroneOfArc does finally stop that constant swell of aggression and is once again stockpiling his forces. He is adding on that Spire so he can make that Mutalisk transition. He is continuing to get just a huge swell of drones. He is not yet fully saturated at his third base, and he's not fully saturated his fourth base yet either. He has that +1 flyer attack on the way. Still just sending in Zerglings to see what he can find, picking off Widowmines where he can find them. One Widowmine connects, the other one gets some damage done to it. The Overseer has died though, so he can no longer find those Widowmines. It is not worth it to try to kill them at this point. He pulls home. 15 Mutalisks are being produced here for DroneOfArc. Single Corruptor on the way. Corruptor gets canceled. The Queen is being constructed now. And we see that he is just retreated back home and is reinforcing at his third location. There are 2 Vikings out around the map patrolling, trying to find those Overlords, trying to pick up those kills wherever they can get them. And the supply just ever so slightly favoring Talrane at this point. He is still heavily fortified on 2 bases, but he is mining low on both of those bases. His main base is almost mined out. Just, 200 on his 400 is his highest. And here are the Mutalisks. The Mutalisks coming in, scared off by that missile turret. They will fly to the third base and try to pick off the hatchery as it tries to land, but the Widowmines are trying to burrow there furiously so they can get those shots onto those Mutalisks. They do kill off the Vikings. How many Mutalisks do we still have at this point? 14. 1 Mutalisk dying at this point, but it did deny that third base for now. Talrane is having trouble with that mineral income, building up quite a large bank. He does not know when he is going to be able to fully establish this base and get it saturated, as the Mutalisks once again try to sweep into the main base, pick off these constructing missile turrets. Will they actually sweep in and kill off the existing missile turret? As he will not, just picking off the new ones. And will go for the engineering base, trying to pick off those upgrades. He does not, however, focus down the... Okay, now they are both have upgrades finishing. Snipes off one of the upgrades, but that +2 attack will finish as it is saved by those SCVs. The missile turrets still taking a couple pot shots at these Mutalisks, and behind this we see the infestation pit is on the way as he continues to bring in big swell of Zerglings. And we see the engineering bay is forced to be rebuilt. Talrane, however, has gotten that third base down finally and is getting a huge transfer out of the main base down to it. Stop mining his main base as it was almost mined out, and has this third base now saturated and begins to move out across the map with this biomined force that should deal with good positioning on those Widowmines. It should deal with this Zergling Baneling composition. Pathogen gland upgrades is on the way for those infestors that we saw from that infestation pit. The hive is also on the way, but we see 19 Banelings being morphed in. Huge amounts of Zerglings still here on the map, and the upgrades are almost actually tied up with 2 attacks for both sides. And he does extend out past his own Widowmines. The Widowmines getting excellent connections with the Zerglings, but they did get some good connections with the bio as well. The Banelings being taken out before they actually get excellent connections. No, they finally do pull them off at the last second. Both armies are decimated by the opponent's splash damage, but it looks like the bio will reign supreme as Talrane does push through this engagement. Small swells of Zerglings here coming out, trying to engage as the third hatch once again falls from DroneOfArc. Talrane pushing through, taking out that hatchery. There's 20 Zerglings hatching, 24 more in production. He can hold this, but he needs to do it soon before this army of Talrane can fully reposition, before this minefield can once again get spread out and contain him perfectly. Are those Mutalisks still alive? There are still 7 Mutalisks flying around across the map as this bioforce of Talrane is shrinking. And there's just a counter swing going on for DroneOfArc. DroneOfArc going down here to this base, kills off all. These SCVs are just forfeit. This is a huge amount of Talrane's SCVs. But it does counter the fact that Talrane has been killing off DroneOfArc's workers at that third base all game. Why weren't those SCVs mining? That is an excellent question you might ask yourself. And he does hit the reinforcements here of Talrane. Talrane's Widow Mine's not yet burrowed, but the Marines should be enough to clean up the Zerglings. And the forces of Talrane still just sitting here outside DroneOfArc's base, holding him back. Those Widow Mines should connect, but they might hit a lot of that bio. Baneling splash damage, taking out the Widow Mines that were present there. Both of these two Widow Mines having, that one not a lot. This one having 18 kills. The Zerglings have met the bio. They should not be able to push through that with the healing of the medevac. The bio does still hold. This bio is really causing a lot of problems. 44 more Zerglings on the way. The +3 attack upgrade, as well as the +3 carapace. With the queens there, he actually lifts up a large portion of his army and comes here to the third base and tries to kill that off. All of the spine crawlers are positioned on the north side for this army, but the Mutalisks sweep in and they will clean up this drop. 44 Zerglings just hatched. They will come down. The Widow Mines, can they get the connections they need? This Widow Mine doesn't even fire. 44 Zerglings run through that and none of them fire. The drop in the main base is cleaned up. What are our worker losses at this point? 45 workers have been killed off for DroneOfArc. 17 for Talrane. DroneOfArc is holding excellently so far in this game. These Widow Mines are causing some problems. That one is almost off cooldown and it gets sniped in the nick of time. It almost got to fire. Once again, there are no minerals here in the main base for DroneOfArc. He has all of these workers he needs to transfer. He needs to reestablish his base, but in the time being, he has 44 more Zerglings on the way and is preparing another swell out across the map. Talrane is starting to move out. He has, looks like only 3 Widow Mines with this force. That will not be enough to pick off this quantity of Zerglings, especially if he stalls for too long. The upgrades will finish for these Zerglings. They will have that Adrenal Glands upgrade as well as the +3 attack and armor upgrades. And they will be almost unstoppable to these Marines at that time, who will only have, at that point, the +3 attack and the +2 armor. This hatch will once again fall. No cancel on that. The Zerglings are starting to sweep in. The Zerglings will get bottlenecked as the bio pulls back up into this point. This is not the full force of his Zerglings, though. The Widow Mines there could get excellent connections. They hit the Zerglings. The Banelings do sit on top of them and take them out as they are sniped off. There are Banelings and Zerglings are going to sweep in from different angles here. If you can get the good surround and hold them still, these Banelings will come in and they will absolutely destroy that Bioforce. Enough of it does get lifted up that it is still a threat to DroneOfArc, but Talrane's force was just absolutely decimated there. 34 more Zerglings in production. Mutalisks are once again trying to fly around, trying to find this. That Baneling gets a little connect against the Marauder. And the Mutalisks will actually save this base. They could pick off the medevacs. There are not enough Mutalisks here to efficiently do this. One of them falls. The boost is almost done, and the Mutalisks will once again be able to catch up. The Marines are dropped, but they are ignored. The Mutalisks are just going for these medevacs. The medevacs will fall. The Marines and Marauders are cleaned up. And Talrane is being pushed back across the map here by DroneOfArc, who has held brilliantly so far against all of this aggression by Talrane. Talrane actually has this third base once again saturated. He's positioning the Widow Mines to try to prevent the entry. Gets a scan. He knows just where the Banelings are, but he did not see all of those Zerglings. The Zerglings will sweep around behind. They will pick off that Marauder. The Widow Mines are burrowed. The Widow Mines are burrowed along the entryway for a lot of that army, but no, he sweeps around behind them. The Banelings coming in from the bottom. Banelings once again getting huge connections on the Bioforce of Talrane, and they will sweep down into the base. And Talrane, in disgust, knows that he messed that game up. He lost that, and DroneOfArc wins as Talrane GG's out. DroneOfArc just had an excellent hold against all that aggression of Talrane, so congratulations to DroneOfArc on an excellently played game. And I hope you will all join me for more games of StarCraft in the future. Thank you. Good night.